George, can you hear us? George, Mary,
Hear you.
anyone?
I can hear you.
All right, we'll try that. All right, thank you. Cool. Yep. Oh, wait, I didn't hear it, sorry. All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First order of business is to approve the agenda. I just have one amendment to remove the facility report. We're gonna have that for next month. Any other amendments to the agenda? If none, a motion in order to approve it would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by George. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 That motion carries unanimously. Up next, general public comment. We have folks in person online tonight. Is there anyone who wishes to speak tonight?
My only question, is this a follow-up to the first? That's the first meeting?
This is just our regular meeting. This is our regular board meeting.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about the forums and then kind of like next steps. So,
Okay.
But it's not like the public forums we had the last couple of weeks. So that answers your question.
Yep.
But there's another opportunity for public comment on the agenda later on. So, all right. Up next, consent agenda. We have the minutes from September 11th. Are there any amendments to the minutes?
I'm just trying to find it, but there was a spot under 8 old business where it refers to the community forum and the future of our schools. I just thought that maybe it should say exploration in the future of our schools, since that was the first step and not.
Where was that at?
It's on page 7.
Oh.
Under old business. Just think in the future it could be interpreted as like a final decision instead of the initial exploration.
Okay. Any other amendments to the minutes? All right, so a motion to approve minutes from September 11th with that amendment.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Amanda. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, motion carries unanimously. And then we have warrants for our 2 warrants, 364 and 366. If there's no questions about the warrants, is there a motion to approve these warrants?
I'll make that motion.
All right. Motion by Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Contract recommendations. I think we just have informational.
Yeah, it's on the informational.
I had a question similar to the mentoring stipend, like at the supervisory union meeting. Is that the same as it was, where it's like on a scale or like a range?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's 2 different levels. For first teacher, that's level 1. For second year teachers, then it's reduced at level 2. I think the level 1 is like $750, and level 2 is $500. And so sometimes you have Wellsprings teachers mentoring Wellsprings teachers, but other times you have maybe like a Corey Valley teacher mentoring a Wells Springs teacher or vice versa. And the district that pays is the district that is being mentored. So if it's a Wells Springs teacher that's being mentored, then Wells Springs would pay for the teacher that's doing the mentoring, no matter what district they work for.
I'm sorry, say that again. So the school that's receiving the mentoring or give, okay.
Any other questions about contract recommendations?
Yeah, just really quickly, when is the mentoring happening? Is that like during the school day? Is that like kind of like on developmental, staff, teacher days? Just wondering. I'm just interested.
So, Mary, the mentoring takes place throughout the course of the year, and basically the mentor and the mentee set up times. What they meet, some days will be during their plan prep period. Other times might be after school or during in-service time. So it really is up to the two individuals to log the hours that they work and report that back to the mentor coordinator.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to retirements. We have one retirement for Mary Ellen Jacobs. We need a motion to accept the resignation.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Amanda. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. All right, on to superintendent's report.
Thanks, Eric. I have two items, actually 3 items, just to quickly review. In your board resource folder, I have included 2 documents. One is a copy of the DRCSU board budget communication plan. As many of you are aware, that is part of the co-developed goal to myself and the DRCSU board. One of the goals was around developing a budget communication plan. The board felt that the need for a more focused plan this year in terms of getting information out to members of various stakeholders around cost drivers, around what the first budget would mean, explaining some of the terms, so on and so forth. And so we have a detailed plan that begins this month and it'll take us through every month through March, through town meeting day. As I explained to all the other boards, so it's not meant to have 5 different plans, one for each of the boards. But I do understand that the plan for Wells Springs may look a little bit different in terms of information that we need to communicate to our families and to our stakeholders based on questions they may have or just certain scenarios or considerations. So as we go through this, if there are certain items that we need to be included, or once we discuss, that's something which we can work through, Eric or myself or Lewis, and we can help get that information out. The second item that was in there is around the budget FAQ. We did develop what's called a starter FAQ. So we developed 30 questions around school budgeting from very general, just overviews about kind of explaining how ed tax rates are funded here in the state of Vermont, to very focused ones about per pupil expenditures or things along those lines. This is meant to be, like I said, just a beginning draft. We will be working on establishing a link on both the Wells Village School and the Middletown Springs Elementary School websites, in which community members can click on this and submit a question. It's anonymous. The only thing that will be asked is just which board or which budget you'll be focused on. It'll be Wells Springs or GSSU or both. And then you can ask that question. And what can happen is myself or Lewis will take a look at that, and we will within 48 to 72 hours have a response. We'll put that on that master list of questions that'll appear back on the budget website. So we're trying to be more responsive to questions to provide another avenue for communication. The last item that I have is last week, the representatives from the Southwest Vermont Superintendents Association, which is superintendents from the GRCSU, Rutland Northeast, Rutland City, Slate Valley, and Mill River, met with Secretary Saunders, the Deputy Secretary Jill Briggs Campbell, and our board chairs, a few of the board chairs who were attendants, just to kind of review some data. The data, it was a good meeting, good discussion. We cannot disclose any information that was discussed yet. That's not meant for public consumption. But I do want to I want to let everyone know that there is a meeting scheduled for October 28th. It's a public engagement session. I'm finalizing the details right now with Secretary Saunders' office, but it will be held at West Rutland School. I do believe 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Yeah. We're working on childcare, working on having some food, pizza, probably some light snacks. But when I have more information, I'll be sharing that out. And I know that Corey and Carol will be sharing that in their newsletters as well. So, but just something to keep on your radar that October 28th, there will be an opportunity for the public to engage with Secretary Saunders as well as Deputy Secretary Jill Briggs-Campbell. Ask questions about budgeting, vision for education, vision for schools in Vermont. Everything's on the table. So, Erica, if there's anything you want to say about you were at the meeting as well, but there's really not much to say. But
yeah, and I thought it was a productive meeting, and I think I think my plan was to prepare something for the next SU meeting, and then
I started being put on spot.
Yeah, no, that's okay
as well. So
well, I kind of want to talk about it, but then again, I don't want to say something. All right, any questions about the superintendent's report?
Chris, I have a question about when you had said like the documents that you'll be sending out to kind of keep people informed. It was suggested at one of our forums that maybe people could have the option to opt out from the mailing and receive it electronically. If that would be an option, like at least for the parents that we have email addresses for in the schools, or will everybody just be receiving a mailing?
So what I will do is obviously the easiest way for us to get the information out would be the email. One of the things we talked about with the board as we look at, send out mailing for every post, there is a cost to that. And I think that's something which we would be discussing with the board first before we made that decision. But I know that the Wellsprings board does have another avenue that they communicate individuals who are not a part of our parent list. So as I share that information out with the board, then that board then can in turn disseminate that the letter out. My goal would be to have a letter out early next week, which kind of talks about budgeting, just some of the priority areas that we identified tonight, as well as just kind of lay out what we can expect for the next week. And like I said, once you have that, then you can put that into your newsletter, because I know that you have another way of reaching other areas of the community.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. We'll move on to principals reports. Corey.
Sure. All right, overview. Kind of touch on some of the things that both Middletown and Wells are doing. In the month of September, we had our first faculty meeting where we came together as both schools. We met virtually. We've been engaged in a book study around the science of reading and making small shifts in our literacy instruction that will impact student achievement. Teachers, we split them up into groups of pre-K to 2 and 3 to 6. And Carol and I each took a group, and the teachers had great conversations around the strategies that were listed in the first chapter of the book. Teachers are creating plan, do, study, act cycles, PDSA cycles, and are engaging in that for the next 8 weeks before coming back to look at data and discuss how things are going with their colleagues. At Middletown, we had our first cauldron of the year. We really focused on the character trait of respect. And then at the end of the month, we came together and we celebrated 6-star wizards who really stood out and exemplified that character trait. Invited parents to the school. It was a really nice way to end the week. I can give you an update. My school counselor, Patricia Swain, has been planning the middle school fair for the students at Middletown and Wells. So we have the middle school fair scheduled for October 22nd from 8:30 to 10:30. Communication will be going out to families so that they know that they are invited as well. We chose to do it during the school day because we felt it was important to have all students present. We have confirmed attendance from Holtley, from Long Trail, from West Rutland, from Rutland Town, from Fairhaven, from Mill River, and from Granville. So we're pretty excited about that. We've asked the schools to come and give like a 5 to 10 minute overview presentation to the students. And then they will have tables set up so the students can go visit the tables and ask questions and get more information from the schools that they're more interested in. We will be holding that at Middletown and busing students from Wells over to Middletown. Last Wednesday was Custodian Appreciation Day. I would like to give a shout out to Jim Willis at Middletown and Lisa Wade here for everything that they've been doing. I know in my building, Mr. Jim has been doing a lot since we've lost our facilities director. So he's really stepped up and he's been a great help. So we really appreciate it. Mr. Carlson and his 5th and 6th grade class, they have taken on the project and they actually just finished, I believe this morning. Our preschool fence had not been installed prior to school starting for a variety of reasons. And so Mr. Carlson and his 5th and 6th graders decided to use this as part of their real world math application. So the kids were out there measuring and installing the fence for us, which was great. So if you are in the area, take a look. It looks fantastic. I think that's what I've got for you.
What was the date for the choice fair again?
October 22nd at Middletown from 8:30 to 10:30.
And what schools did you say? I'm sorry. You said Pulteney, Long Trail, Granville.
Pulteney, Long Trail, West Rutland, Rutland Town, Fairhaven, Mill River, and Granville.
Okay, thank you.
And is it for 5th and 6th?
So we are inviting all 5th and 6th graders. We want to make sure that we give those 5th graders kind of that first dose of it.
Great.
And I think that would be what we would look to do every year.
Mary?
Yeah, Corey, I just wanted to ask just a quick question about the student outcomes and progress. Just, after our Fast Bridge assessment, you're going to, meet with the EST team to just go over the layer 1 intervention. I'm just wondering how that's going since we don't have the interventionist position filled. Is that kind of falling on like you guys or the EST team or Noel? I'm just wondering how that's going.
Yes. So, the plan is at this point, we're actively looking for an interventionist. But in the meantime, we will be meeting as an EST team. So the EST team currently consists of myself, Miss Swain, and Miss Jepson when she is available. Looking at, we will be focusing heavily on layer 1 interventions, which is what the teachers provide. We have smaller class sizes, which allow the teachers additional time to work more closely with students, to work in smaller groups with students. And so that is where we are going to have to focus our energy since we cannot pull students out. We simply just don't have the people to do that right now. So it'll be looking at how do we structure classrooms to allow for a classroom teacher to meet with small groups of students or to meet individually with students, diving into the interventions that Fast Bridge offers us and implementing those, working with teachers on setting up progress monitoring during those EST meetings so that we can do it. So we don't have to have the teachers spend additional time once they leave us going to do that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Corey.
I know with Carol not here, I don't know if you have any insight on this question, maybe just in the challenges for the PA system and the security system. It says the equipment has arrived, but it's just awaiting installation.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to ask like what the timeline is for that, because I know that's been a long time
So I
challenge.
did speak with Greg Connors, who's the GRCC director. He was down here today beginning that process installation. So hopefully they will have that done relatively soon.
Okay. No, I'm just curious because I know, it's been on the challenges for quite a while. So I'm just curious. That's all.
Yeah, when I saw Greg back at the central office, when he got back from Killington, he had just returned from Wells, where he's down here, he's doing specs and get everything set up, ready to go. So I do believe that they may take advantage of the in-service day on Friday when students are to begin that as well. So.
I have a question about the Wells challenges too. I don't know if it's, or you might know the answer, or Chris, or maybe nobody, but Carol says that the counselor position was taken down because we didn't have any qualified candidates and that she's reassessing and then may or may not repost at a later time. Do we know if we can share the counselor with Middletown in the meantime, like we do the nurse? So that at least we have somebody?
So it's something that Carol and I have talked about, and certainly our counselor is available as needed. She has a system in place here, and I'm not going to speak to it because, but she felt that, the second half of last year, they had something in place that worked pretty well. And so she was looking to continue that because the people here are who the kids have relationships with. They're more willing to open up, and but our counselor is available as needed as well.
So Amanda, I do believe that this is a short-term solution that she has in place. By her removing the post was not meant to say, well, we don't need that position. I think it is a critical position that still is central to operation in the school. It's just that at this time here in October, the likelihood of finding a school counselor, so bring it down. I was going to repost it because what happens is when you leave a post, it gets buried. So when you post, it moves on to like page 6 or 7. Once you repost, it then brings it back up to the very front. So she talked about reposting because you still have that position in the budget. No need for that, but I think it was just at this particular time she took it off while they were just figuring out what the next steps would be. But their goal would be to fill that position, if not this year, obviously for next year as well.
Okay, so when you say that the Middletown counselor is available, is she like available virtually or by phone, or would she be willing to come here? Okay.
And I mean, if there ever was a situation, this is part of the benefits in SU, that if there were a situation where we could easily have counselors from other schools within our SU, would be from the Corey Valley or Rutland Town for an assist as well, if necessary.
Okay.
If there's a situation that needed additional assistance, that's part of one of the benefits of being in SU is you have access to other resources to assist when necessary.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on the principal reports? Mary?
Yeah. Hey, I just really quick. I'm sure the negotiations are still going on at the SU level. I'm just wondering if there's any movement on potentially raising the rate for the substitute for hourly or for the day. I know that when I was reading the reports that, maybe 25% or a little bit more of the.
So Mary,
yeah.
At the last year's assistant board meeting, the GR assistant board did vote to, effective immediately, raise the sub rate to $17 an hour. So we have raised that sub rate.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to finance.
Good evening, everyone. So the budget timeline was in the packet. It was also in the packet last month, just as an FYI. The first draft of the budget will be presented at the next Wellsprings board meeting. So that's November. Tonight, we're looking to have a board discussion on budget priorities, parameters, things that you want to see in the first round of the budget, or anything that you want us to research and come back, more information that you want us to provide. So it's just to get the conversation started so that when we're preparing that first draft, we're having those discussions in advance and because the season is so short, when we start in November and in January, we want to make sure that we have as much information in there as possible in the first round so that we're not delaying the process. So the first draft gets presented in November. Based on that first draft, so we would be looking for feedback from the board. We present the second draft in December. At that time, we probably still won't have any state information such as the yield, the long-term weighted ABM, or CLA data. That usually does not come out. The CLA and the long-term weighted average data probably won't come out for the middle of December because that meeting is so early in the month. We won't have that yet. So we'll probably be looking at the January board meeting before we really have the full picture of what impact the budget will have on tax rate, taxpayer. So in the past, Royal Springs Board has sometimes approved their budget in December without that data if they feel comfortable with the numbers. But we really, you have until January, the beginning of January to pass that budget. Really has to be done towards the beginning of January because after the board approves it, then we still have a lot of work to do to start preparing for the annual reports that we have produced so that they're available to the taxpayers, as well as putting together our PEG TV presentation and mailings for the community members and starting all of our outreach. And that takes some time to prepare. So we want to have that done, an approved budget as quickly as possible so that we can start that process.
Is there, I can't imagine that there is, but last year there was the 5% cap for the weighting changes in people's budget due to the new, because that weighting is already in place. There's nothing like that this year.
So the budget season started with that in place, but then there was that new law that was put into place during the legislative session. I think it's 850, which eliminated that 5% cap and replaced it with an incentive for those people that were negatively affected by Act 127. Well Springs didn't fall into that category, so that neither the 5% cap nor the new law had any impact on Well Springs.
Okay, so it's a done deal from last year anyway, so.
Correct. There was also a new piece of change that was part of that new legislation that they put into law at the very end of the session, which impacts the yield and the CLA. It's an adjustment factor that you multiply both the yield and the CLA by. It has a zero impact in the ending tax rate, but it's sort of just it's a shift, shifting the yield is shifting the CLA with no net impact. Many people will question why, but it's the state making an adjustment to sort of little smoke and mirrors, I think. So I'd like to open it up to the board just to have a discussion as to what the board is looking to see in that first draft. Priorities that you would like us to consider putting that together.
Can we look at the cost to bring back after school program and summer programs, since it's been proven that Boys and Girls Club isn't working here in Wells, so that we could at least have something here, even if it's not in Wells and Middletown, but could we look at it for both, but then have it for an option individually? And then the health insurance, we can't really shop around for that, right? Like there's only one plan to choose from. It's not like
Correct.
Okay.
It's out of our control. Anyway. Mary?
Yeah, I know there were a few factors contributing to the fact that we didn't have our summer program here in Middletown Springs, and that it worked well in Wells, but I just had some feedback with some families that if we did have something during the summer that was local, we would have, obviously more attendings for Middletown Springs. So I don't know if we can dive into budgeting for that, or, we've had it in the past in the last couple of years. Last year it was in Wells. So it's just something that's come up before, that Middletown parents would love to see it if the staffing is there and if the funding is there, to have it right here in Middletown.
So we weren't with the Boys and Girls Club for the summer program. That was a local program, and that was a local decision to only have one program. That was made by.
It was made because of staffing. We were unable to staff two separate programs.
So just because we budget for it doesn't mean we'll be able to have a program.
Right. I understand that. I'm just saying, like, I know that there's a few factors, but if we're able to budget for it, and maybe tap into some of the staff that we had previously, if it can't happen, it can't happen because of staffing, but I wouldn't want it to happen because of budget things.
Isn't the Boys and Girls Club summer programs like a couple of hours as well, like 10 to 12 at Pulteney Elementary, and then maybe like 2 to 4 here or something like that, not a full day.
Their summer program was a full day. It actually ran longer than our program. It started at the end of June and went until I believe August 16th. Ran from like 8 to 3:30.
Yeah, I'm just nervous. Like, I'm not confident that we can really guarantee that we'll have it. We haven't been able to have the after school program here in Wells yet. So I'd be nervous to say that we would stick with that and then have it. So maybe just for comfort of seeing if we could staff it and what the cost would be.
I think, Amanda, I think we'll bring back the cost of programming. So when we're funding this through ESSER funds, we'll bring back the cost, what that would be to add that to the budget. I think what we have to understand, regardless of, even if we have the money, whether it be through boys and girls or through regular budget, if we don't have the staff, we don't have the staff. I think that's been the issue for us, is that we just don't have staff to run the programming, no matter where that money is coming from. And so I think that's a conversation the board has to have around it. We understand the need for after school summer program. We do. That's across the state. I think there's just a lack of programming for families. You just look at the economy; it really has make sure that both parents in a dual parent household have to work just to make ends meet. We understand that reality, but the problem is, as I said, we don't have the staff. We don't have the staff, and our CBA is really only for the teacher work day or the staff work day. That anything outside of that is a separate thing. That has nothing to do with our school hours. So that's something which we said we would have to, if a staff member would be willing to work independently outside of the teacher work day for whatever that cost is, that would be up to them. By the way, I do know that a lot of our staff have families of their own. They don't have childcare, so they have to go home and watch. So there are a lot of factors behind this. So we understand that we need all our schools that we are talking about this today with superintendents and business managers. But the problem right now is just with others, you don't have the individuals to run the program. It just makes it very difficult for us to do.
It was a struggle to keep the Wells program. My understanding was a struggle to keep the Wells after school program running, even when we were running an in-house program last year. So it's no surprise that the Boys and Girls Club is struggling to find the staff.
Yeah, so my understanding is that they have the staff. They didn't have enough students. They required at least 15 students to be signed up.
That's not. Well, Middletown, I don't think has 15 students, do you?
I don't think so. I said, I don't think we have that many. No.
Good to know. Thank you.
Matt?
Hey, I've brought this up in the past, but there's a cannabis tax that's for after school and I believe also summer programming. I just Googled it right now and it looks like that's available through grants. So I'm just curious if that funding, if we're creating grants to receive any of that money towards after school, but that could help at least for budgeting.
So I know when I brought this up to the state, when I asked this question, there was no information out about it yet. But our current after school programs through the Boys and Girls Club are costing us $0. So there's really no need for a grant.
Okay.
It's all based on parents filling out the subsidy form and a parent pay model.
Got it. Thank you.
So I'm curious for the budget, if we're building out a budget, are we going to be seeing like double-digit health increases potentially? What are we going to be looking at for, like, I guess, staffing costs, because I think if we're going to be seeing, I think for this budget, it was like 4.5%, what we budgeted last year. Are we going to be seeing kind of if we were to do like a, just level budget, right? I'm just wondering now while we're having this conversation, if we should consider finding ways to reduce the budget. And then the other thing I had, and I think we probably need to make that determination sooner rather than later, is the surplus, right?
Yeah, so to start from the beginning with, so health insurance, right now, we don't have an estimate from VHI. They're expected to have that estimate for us next week when they do their filing. I am using 15%. That's what I started with for the SU budget, and that's what I have for local budgets. Until I hear a number other than that. Remember, in the last 5 years, we've seen 4 years of double-digit increases. So 15% is nowhere near out of the question. They reported that the private markets are seeing a 20% increase. We're a self-sustained pool, so we're hoping or optimistic that it's not that high, and hopefully 15 is high, but we really don't know. So hopefully before the next board meeting, we will have a better idea. When we do get the estimate, I think it's at the end of next week. It is just an estimate. That's their filing, but the board can deny it and say you have to go higher. As far as increases for staff, I mean, that's not something we can discuss in session. But what I can say is that we are currently negotiating our ESP contract for this current year. So when we're looking at FY26 budget, we have 2 years worth of unknowns that we have to budget for. And then for teachers, our contract goes through June 30th, 2025. So we'll have 1 year's worth of estimates that we have to budget for. So next year. And then the last piece is surplus. We have $158,000 surplus. I reported in August. So that'll be a discussion as to how we want to use that. Some of the main options are: one, we can give it all back to the taxpayers as a revenue. Option two would be we ask the taxpayers to use the full amount or a portion of that amount to put into a capital reserve fund that we can use for building improvements. Option three is we put it in all as revenue and we budget for some necessary capital repairs in that same year. So that's, and you can do it as a portion of that. So like if you needed a new roof, you can put it all in as revenue, but then put an offsetting expense for a portion of that into the budget the same year. I don't think we need to decide on exactly which option we want to use or how much we want to go into each option, because you can do a piece of each option. We don't need to make those decisions tonight. I think it's important to see kind of where the budget lands in the first draft. And, okay. Based on those factors that we just talked about, health insurance and other inflationary costs, wages and benefits, where that all puts us at for a percentage increase, and we can kind of have that discussion at the next board meeting to see, you know, really what is the board looking to see, what is the end result that you want to see? Do you want to see a 3% max increase, or do you want to see a flat budget? Those are the things that the board kind of needs to decide.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of curious of what we're kind of looking at for potential increases. George?
Yeah, as you mentioned, surpluses and building maintenance. I just wondered how we're positioned in regards to our 5-year building maintenance plan.
So George, that's something which we continue to look at. I know that in November we're going to have a facility report. That could be something that the facility committee could meet prior to that meeting just to review that information. And then have a thorough report from the board at that time if you'd like.
Okay, maybe what I'll try to do is to talk to you and Lewis prior to that, sure. For some information, and then I'll make a presentation at our next Wellsprings meeting.
That sounds great. That sounds good. Thank you.
Matt?
Please go to Mary. She raised her hand first.
Oh, she did? Okay. Mary?
Hi, Lewis. Do you just have a ballpark of like how much we have remaining in the capital improvement fund from previous years?
There's currently 194,000.
Okay, and how does that fund be spent? Is that like spent from, you know, Corey coming to the board, or, you know, because in the past,
in order to access the fund, the principals have to come to the board and the board has to approve it.
Okay, thank you.
And typically it's only for projects that are greater than $5,000.
$190,000. Matt?
Hey, so
Oh, yeah.
is this just curious if the surplus, if some of this is because of staffing shortages, unable to get substitutes, unable to get counselor, interventionist? Is that where some of this money is coming from? Or is there room in our budget to potentially hire a language teacher?
So the report that I provided in August with the surplus amount had some of the details as to what was causing that surplus, but I can go over some of those now. All of our districts have seen surpluses larger than normal the last few years due to us having ESSER funds available, which we were able to use those funds to fund many of the requests that were coming out of our schools for curriculum, training, PD. We were also funding staff. We were funding part of your interventionists. Even though that money was in the local budget or other funding available, we were funding that with grant funds because it was a new position when it was created. We added the funding after the position was created with federal funds. So for the last few years, you've been seeing local savings, even though you had that position in place. And that was so that when ESSER funds went away, you weren't seeing a budget increase. So we incrementally increased your budget amount over the last few years so that when ESSER funds went away, you had that money in your local budget. So you were seeing savings every year. So just go over some of the highlights from year end. $48,000 of it was due to food service savings, and that was because you had cut 2 staffing positions, 1 at each school. You had 2 part-time positions, 1 at each school that were cut after the budget had been already created, which resulted in some savings. Plus you had an increase in revenues, food service revenues. You had $111,000 in other salaries and benefit savings, and that was due to that position that I had mentioned, plus other unfilled positions throughout the year. Secondary tuition was over budget by approximately $79,000. You had some transportation savings due to, I think Wells didn't have a bus for a portion of last year. So you were doubling up and making accommodations, but we got a refund for that of $12,000. You had $18,000 in substitute savings, and that was just due to unfilled substitute positions. You had $33,000 in repair savings, and that was just due to the repairs budget not being fully spent. And then you had $15,000 in professional service savings. In addition, you had $10,000 in higher revenue, which was mostly due to higher interest rates.
Thank you. So it seems like a lot of that is well budgeted and I guess year to year maintainable. We're not, if we were to hire a language teacher, that would presumably add to our load if all of the positions were filled and all the bus drivers were in seats busing around kids. We'd only see maybe the savings we saw, the 48 from the food services. I don't know if that's still allocated to those budget lines, but
yeah, so the budget has been reduced already to reflect that. So yeah, so any additional staff members would be added to the budget. I mean, we always, I wanted to say always, but we typically had a surplus for the last 10, 15 years. But that doesn't mean we have any contingencies built into the budget. I mean, we plan for the budget for based on what we need at the time that we create the budget. But not every budget line is spent. So we have maybe, let's just for example, we may have a supply line of $10,000 and we work off that budget, but that doesn't mean we try to spend that whole $10,000. If we only need $9,000 that year, then the $1,000 goes into savings. Secondary tuition is one of the bigger unknowns because you don't have any control of students moving in and out of town. So in this case, I mean, we actually overspent because additional students moved into town. If 5 students move out of town, that could be a savings of $80,000 unplanned. And then definitely any on-field positions, those are where you see your big savings. This year, with not having the council position filled, we'll see a savings there. The interventionist position, we'll see some savings there, even though some of that's federally funded, so we won't see the full savings.
If we were to add a language teacher, roughly, you know, with healthcare, there's always like that range and at what level they're at. Like, what would be the impact, do you think? And could we potentially, like, I'm suggesting maybe we see a budget at you know, at our current, like, what was it take to maintain our services and everything that we provide right now for next year, and also maybe that plus a extra teacher position for a language teacher.
The estimate for a teacher is, with salary and benefits, is approximately $80,000 for a full-time teacher.
Okay.
That could go higher, it could go lower based on the person that you find and their qualifications and their experience, as well as what type of insurance they pay.
Thank you.
If I remember correctly, you know, we had a Spanish teacher for both schools. It was a shared position. And then when that teacher left, finding a replacement, there were no candidates, if I remember correctly. So even just finding a person to do that too, I think that was one of the challenges.
It was a 0.4 position. It's always a struggle to find a part-time position.
Yeah.
I might be remembering kind of incorrectly, and I don't have all of the notes with me, but could you bring back, while we're looking at budget, where we are at with the savings with Green Mountain Power? I think when we looked last, it was like we were looking ahead 2 years, and I feel like this coming one might be that second year where we should see a greater savings. I could be remembering the years wrong.
So the savings is a percent. It's a flat savings per month.
Okay.
However, at the same time that we're receiving those savings, we all know, just based on our home budget bills, electric rates are going up.
Yeah.
Our usage goes up with being a more technological world. I mean, we're using more electricity every single day. So it's really hard to see those savings by looking at your bill, because it's not stagnant from month to month. It's, while you're seeing the savings, everything else is also going up. But we do have a document which shows our monthly and annual savings, which I can pull up. I'll try to pull it up right now, actually.
Okay. I thought I just remembered that a couple of years ago, we were like, okay, in 5 years, it should be greater. And then felt like maybe last year, the year before, we were like 2 years away from the savings really showing. Right? Because there was a cost initially.
No, it's a metering contract, so there's no upfront cost. We just have to we sign a long-term contract, and I don't recall if this one was a 25 or a 20-year contract. And by signing that contract, we are purchasing solar credits from this solar company's array. And each month we purchase their credits, and in exchange, so they're selling us the credits that we're taking off our Green Mountain Power bill. So our Green Mountain Power bill is going down, but then we have a bill to the solar company for purchasing those arrays. Our FY23 savings, which I have open here because that's the last time you had asked for that information. It was approximately $3,000 for the district. That was our annual savings. It was approximately $1,400 and change per school.
Okay.
And it's 11%.
Okay. Thank you.
Mary?
Yeah, just really quick. I think we shared Miss Maria's position. She was the language teacher for 22, 23. Wait, one second. Does everybody, am I remembering that correctly? So we shared the position, and the position was part-time. And she only made $21,000 for that school year. So I just think that, you know, that's going to obviously make a difference between that 80 grand that, that Lou is, had mentioned. If we're doing a part-time language teacher and she's also doing both schools for $21,000 a year. So maybe we can pay them more.
80 is based on a full-time teacher, so if they're part-time, I mean, it's gonna be cheaper. But I know, looking at even your PE teacher, you couldn't find a part-time PE teacher, and then you had to increase that to full-time. Well, and that will be a budget increase because that was not budgeted, so that'll be an increase that's hitting this budget that you're seeing in FY26.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, originally it was going to be, and then
What is the food cost difference between schools? I thought I had looked at it before.
I'm sorry.
okay.
What is the difference in the food service between Wells and Middletown?
What do you mean by the difference?
Like, how much more is Middletown's program than Wells?
We also have like 23, 25 less kids too.
Right, exactly.
So the
That's
cost to
different.
run the programs,
Yeah.
for the current, I mean,
Like, I thought I had seen it in the materials, but I'm not finding it.
it would be in next month's materials with the budget.
Okay.
Like last year's or this current year's would have been presented during last year's budget. I could bring that up.
Okay, yeah, just curious if there's anything we could do. We looked last year at the food, so not really to be making big changes, but just what the actual cost ended up being and if there's something.
So I mean, our costs, our subsidy to the program did go down. So I know when we were talking about this a couple of years ago and talking about contracting out the program, we were looking at a cost of about $90,000. That's how much you were subsidizing the program. Our estimate currently is about $60,000 to subsidize the program, and that was due to the reduction of the 2 staff members.
Okay.
So our total expense for the program, approximately, that's budgeted for FY25 is $180,000. Middletown's program is estimated at approximately $95,000, and Wells's is $85,000.
Right, and they have less kids. Okay.
Matt, did you have a question? Okay.
I did. It was in regards to how we're preparing our students when they go when they leave the elementary schools. Whether or not they're behind the ball in terms of language versus other kids that start those other programs. Just curious if around Rutland, if there are other elementary schools that have language programs as well. Are we the only ones without one? Or I don't know, Chris, if you could answer that.
So Matt, I would have to look into that. I don't have that information offhand. I don't want to put something on the record when it might be inaccurate. So I can look into that for you. Just other schools sort of make up as Middletown and Wells in terms of K through 6, what their foreign language departments may look like, if you like.
Yeah, please do, because part of our board goals, right, is prepare our students for the next step. And if we don't have a language program and other students do, and they're coming in disadvantaged, maybe we should do something about that.
Okay. Anyone else in regards to what you want to see in a budget, in the first draft budget? Mary?
Hey, Eric, yeah, this is just my first time around, but when do we have that feedback from Carol and Corey as far as what they would like to see? I'm not sure exactly how that works. If they come to the board individually, if it's something that they're, we just speak about, but I just feel like they might be, the ones that, and this is just my first budget process. So
Mary, Lewis and I meet with Carol and Corey, and that's where we discuss their budgetary concerns, items that they would like to add, and then once we had their input, we build out a budget, and that will be reflected in the budget that will be presented to the board. And Carol and Corey can talk about or answer any questions at that time. But we have a meeting with them scheduled. We'll take their information into account as we build out the budget.
Okay, great, thanks.
Did you get the facilities line?
What's that?
Facilities line?
What's that?
Did I miss you talking about the facilities, the extra line?
No.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question about the language language teacher idea? Would we consider sign language and or coding as an option as opposed to Spanish, French, German? Is that's a reasonable?
I think that's part of what the board set a priority about, if they feel a language option and what they would like to see, that's something which we could take a look at.
It just might broaden, our.
I think there are two things. One is about the addition of an FTE or an additional staff member. Then if the board feels it's necessary to add that FTE, then how do we utilize that? Or what is the vision of that in terms of?
Yeah.
But seeing that.
Excel or,
Yeah.
Some of the language, right?
Seeing that we struggled having a straight on language teacher, maybe we should broaden what language is, which I believe most school systems do at this point.
And staffing is difficult, but I think as we all are aware that anything below 1.0 FTE or full-time, it does make it very difficult, to find someone at a 0.8 or a 0.4. So I think if the board feels they would like to add a full-time, a 1.0 FTE, it does make it easier when you advertise, to try to attract people as opposed to a 0.8. Even though at a 0.8 you still are getting benefits, but still it's there is that cost.
And even if it was a 1.0, we could split that between the two schools and it's kind of the same within the building, just
Right.
double the budget because it's.
So what the board understand that all employees or less employees are employees of the Wellsprings Unified School District. So therefore, it's not to a school or to a placement. They are district employees, just as in Quarry Valley, they're district employees in Rutland Town. So therefore, they can be placed where Carol or Corey feel necessary. So.
And that would be, so with all of the employees then that are Wellsprings employees, that is decided by Corey and Carol, like the amount of time they're in each, or is that?
Well, I think if we were looking to split a position, obviously we'd look at equity and how do we balance that. That's something Carol and Corey have to look at what makes most sense. Some schools have done this, employ like AB days where 3 days a week they're in one building, 2 days, and then it reverse the following week. So I think there are a lot of different scenarios that if the board would like, to add that 1.0, Carol, Corey would have to sit down and think about how to best utilize that individual and what that may look like. That would be up to them.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think one thing to consider with the language, I remember when we first added this to the budget all them years ago, what the expectation is at the elementary level for language too. I think it's a whole kind of different set of curriculum that you're going to see in the secondary level. Something to keep in mind, as my daughter was in the school, I got to see a lot of that, but, just something to think about, with the language option, but all right. Any other thoughts? I don't know. Matt?
Sorry, just to follow that. I mean, I think maybe the language that's taught, whatever that language is not that substantial. It's just general exposure, I think, is beneficial at early ages. So, yeah, I'm pro language teacher, obviously. Anyway, just want to say that.
We actually had after school program where it was really more of a club. And they did, I think, art and food in Spanish. And that was a good way to, it worked for that person that they could come in as an after school program. I think they were teaching somewhere else at the time. But it's just another way to look at introducing other language at an early age.
Okay. So I don't know how helpful that is. I think, you know, if we're going to be looking at a first draft, my thought is not to add to it just yet. You know, I'd like to see what some of these potential changes that are going to hit, you know, just preparing for the worst. If anything, you know, maybe we can offset some of that with the revenue from last year, you know, but I know you said that we don't have to make that decision tonight exactly how that is spent, but, you know, this year's budget, when we looked at it, I think it was basically, just level, like there was nothing added from the budget, and we saw, what I would say a significant increase, you know, not as significant as other districts, but, you know, so I'm kind of anticipating on the same thing this year. So, you know, I'm kind of leaning towards trying to reduce how much spending on the budget, but, you know, I guess it might be more beneficial to see the first draft if that helps at all.
So Eric, would you like to prepare a budget that's a level sets budget and then also one that has the 1.02 units?
Yeah.
Like two different scenarios, and we've been asked that in other boards before.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not in favor of bringing two budgets because then I think that gets confusing. But I mean, we can definitely put what the impact would be. I'd bring back the budget and then put what the impact would be on the expense and education spending based on adding that position.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think some folks are interested in seeing
And the,
language.
and after school too. I understand we might not be able to staff it, but just kind of what that cost might look like.
Mary?
Yeah, I just want to echo what you said, Eric, and then also, and I made the statement before that we've had a surplus in the budget since we created it in 2018. So, some years it hasn't, like 2021, it hasn't been very robust. I think it was like $3,000, but we've always run a surplus as far back as I've gone with Lewis into those things.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else to add? All right. Thank you. All right. So we're going to move on to community engagement. So just kind of like a little bit of an update and discussion. So the email subscription is at, I think, 111 emails at this time. So I think, you know, we're making progress as far as the community engagement goes. But it's only a small fraction of community members in both towns, really. And so I think, you know, as we talked about earlier this year, how we were going to handle community engagement would be just put it on the agenda and just have a discussion rather than a committee. So I did have one idea or suggestion that we could use to potentially increase email subscriptions to folks that otherwise aren't aware of what we're doing. And I'm so glad you're here tonight.
Yeah.
Because it kind of stems around spending money. And I know usually when we send out our flyers for our annual report, there's a cost to it. And so that's basically the concept. If the district was to send out a flyer, that would go just like our annual meeting flyer does, our budgetary flyer. Just basically encouraging people to sign up for the email subscription. I think that is probably the best way to do it, you know, than I think knocking on doors, which I think is a good idea nowadays. But so I don't know what the cost is and if folks support it, but you know.
Are you talking about doing a separate mailing, or do
Yeah.
you want to just add something to the regular mailing?
A separate one. Yeah, because my thought is if we send something out now, and I know and again, it's going to cost money. I understand that. I kind of wanted to ask how much it would be, but if we send it out now, then there's potential that we'd have this in place by the time we send out stuff for the annual meeting and the budgetary information that goes out.
Then we
Makes
can
sense.
reach more people with our budget information to encourage them when voting for our budget. Without their
So would
contacts.
you still send out a mailing for the budget?
Yeah, for those.
It usually goes out in January or February.
February. So our goal is usually to get so that people receive it in their mailboxes a few days before the annual meeting, so that it kind of is a reminder to come to the annual meeting and here's all the information that you need.
Yeah.
And then the booklets are usually out a few days before the annual meeting as well.
Do you know how much that is? Like off the top of your head, do you remember what it might have cost?
Flyer, I mean, depending on which model we go with, so if we did like a trifold or just a one-page thing, I want to say it's something around $800, but I can get that cost and report that at the next meeting.
Yeah,
That's a no-brainer.
What's that?
I think it's a good idea.
That's what I was thinking. It's $800. I mean, it's, and it does align with our community engagement that we're working towards, but,
I mean, and if the board, I think even a cheaper option is if you're just looking to get people to sign up for an email, you can probably even just do a postcard. Is an even a cheaper option. That's something that, I mean, if the board wanted to put together what they wanted to say, it's just a matter of sending that to Quick Print, and they do all the mailing for us. They send it. What we typically do is they send it to all households, so we don't need to provide a mailing list or anything like that. So the real, I mean, as far as like the flyer that I usually send out, the biggest piece of that is just the manpower putting that together.
Mhm.
But if you're talking about just a simple postcard that the board's going to create, that's pretty simple.
yeah.
do you know about how much a postcard is?
I don't know.
No, okay.
But if it's less than the trifold.
And is your thoughts that they would go to like a website where they would enter in their email address, or they just?
It's already set up,
Yeah, we just give them a QR code.
QR code, and then the direct.
You can even share a QR code at one of these meetings, the screen share. So if someone's watching on big TV, they can just capture it there as well.
Yeah.
Just another way of reaching people.
Yeah, well, you know, with like with the last community forums and stuff, you know, we did that exact thing, and you know, that's why where we're at with subscription. But you know, other than going to transfer stations, and I think this might be a way to reach everyone, even those who don't go to the transfer station, like they got curbside service, and so I mean, does anyone in objection to this concept at all?
I think it's worth a try, and we can track success and see if it's something we want to continue to do in the future. And not only the QR code can be put there, but our meeting dates. I think it's well worth doing.
Yeah, Mary?
Yeah, I would support that. And I'm not sure if there's any talk about, you know, a representative being at Middletown and Wells on November 4th, or I'm sorry, November 5th when people vote. I know that I've had success face-to-face with people and just getting that. We did it at it was like the town, you know, lawn sale day where I met, you know, a bunch of people and was able to give out the flyers and got a bunch of emails at that point too. So I'm not sure if we're able to do that at the town hall, or if that's something that we want to avoid, or if we've done in the past and it's successful. You know, I'd be happy to do that in Middletown Springs for the day.
Yeah, you mean on November 5th? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, right. Just a lot of, you know, face-to-face time with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's a good idea if you have the time.
You have to be outside.
Yeah. Yep,
Yeah,
I was just gonna
and
say, check
because it's
with
federal.
the clerk for sure. Matt?
Yeah, I was just gonna say the last time we did this with, I think it was a survey, we weren't really allowed to be in there, and the survey got put on a table with a bunch of other stuff.
Yep.
So it was really hard. I think we got maybe 2 people to fill out the survey, if that, for all the people that went through. So it's a tight quarters. At least that's what I was told, and that's why I couldn't be in that room trying to solicit, polling information for our survey. But it's a good idea.
And I think, that being this year where the clerks were running 3 elections, and then obviously we were having the school ballot was there. So I think it just really depends on the situation. 4 years ago, during the last presidential election, we were able to have our survey. We had a survey at the time. We were able to share that and well. So it just really depends, on the clerk and the situation. But either way, it's just kind of like how Meredith said, even outside is a way. You can be outside and engage people that way. But yeah. And so, Sue, what we were talking about is community engagement in regards to trying to have more people sign up to the email subscription. So right now we have just over 100 people subscribed, and most of it come from the community forums. And so the idea is to have a postcard or some sort of trifold or something mail out directly to residents in regards to trying to encourage more community engagement, and at least having people sign up to at least see what we're sharing.
How many mail outs are you expecting on a regular basis?
Just this one time. Yeah, just this one time. So, Matt?
Yeah, just to add to that, there's because I'm looking at it right now, there's 111 contacts. The service we're using is MailChimp, and it's free because we're using their free service. And on average, when we send out these campaigns, these emails, more than half open it. It's like 75%, 60% of people that get these emails open it. And then we get percentages of people that actually click into it. And there's a fair amount that actually click around into the email as well. So they seem to be very successful, at least from the metrics standpoint.
What's that for?
That's simple. I don't know how to move it. Oh, no.
Too soon.
Oh. Too soon.
Okay, so I'm not hearing any opposition to this. So I guess as far as does the board want to wait for an actual cost and have the numbers, the actual cost brought back, or is this something we want to move forward with? And is it okay if I work with Chris and Lewis on
Postcard, yeah.
on a postcard? All
Yeah,
right.
if we know the cost of a postcard is going to be less than 800, I would say move forward.
Okay. So if there's no opposition to this, I'll
Okay.
what's that? We can move forward by unanimous consent. All right.
Yes.
This is sort of related. Do we want to think about asking Louis to include a line item for community engagement?
Oh, for the budget?
As it grows.
Mhm.
I mean, even if it's like $1,500 or something.
Valid
I just
question.
think it might be something to consider.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
So the board does have lines currently already in their budget They have an
Mhm.
advertising line, they have supply line, it isn't.
Oh,
Looking at what we spent last year, some of those are being utilized, not completely. But we could,
What was that
And-
total last year? What was that total last year that we had?
so there's a $3,000 supply line, 2,500 was spent. I'm looking at last year for the. For current year. So there's a 3,000 supply. So last year we actually spent $3,600. So we would increase that. Advertising is $1,150 budget. You spent $500. So the dues and fees line is $300. You spent $275.
okay. So it's just a matter of increasing the
So
right
we can
line.
just increase one of those
Okay.
lines.
Okay.
Okay, anything else about community engagement? All right, Mary?
Yeah, just really quick. I wasn't able to join in person for the Wells Forum. I'm just wondering how many people that you tallied online and then in person. Ballpark.
I don't have that memorized. I mean, I can
I
look and get back to you on the online participation.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna move on to new business.
Did you want me to share the message to approve it to send?
Well, that's coming up.
Okay.
The VHI proxy, so we need to appoint someone as proxy for VHI, just like we did for Visbit. And just like last time, I'll volunteer. So unless someone else would like to do it, but it doesn't make sense.
I'll make a motion to accept Eric as proxy for VHI.
Can you speak up?
Oh, sorry. I'll make a motion to accept Eric as our proxy for VHI.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. All right, and we'll move on to the community forum. So in your packets, we have the results of the survey, or the survey, the feedback form that we had, and not as much response as I was hoping for. Only 24 answers. So I think tonight the discussion would be about, our next steps in regards to consolidation. Yeah, what else we want to do? One option could be that we have the recording from the first community forum, and also what we want to do with that as well. So potentially we could leave the survey open for a little bit longer, and maybe share some of this information to see if we can, I don't know, try and get some more engagement. But like we discussed, I don't think there's a pressing need to come to some sort of conclusion right away. And we could also maybe pick this back up after budgeting. So just some ideas. So thoughts, discussion from the board.
I think we should keep the survey open a while, especially if we're going to be mailing out something encouraging people to sign up for our email. We can share the survey via email I think we were pretty clear in our first two forums that this was the first steps of our exploration. So hearing from them is really important. I don't think we need to rush into something next. I think we should continue to try to get feedback from the community. So I think keeping the survey open would be the best way to do that.
Wow.
It's challenging to draw conclusions from the meetings and or the questionnaire because we're preaching to the choir. We need to get more into the community and, engage through with community engagement, I think. And for what any of those approaches will cost us both in time and effort, will cost the communities in hardship. I think it'll be really, really difficult this time anyways to try to negotiate any of those scenarios in our communities without causing a lot of pain. Not sure the outcome would be worth it at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about this before with other surveys where there's such a small response. It's incredibly difficult to make any kind of decision based off of that. And and then even just looking at what we talked about, what we heard, yeah, I definitely think the conversation is going to continue, but all right. So maybe we can continue. And I think you wanted to add the
An email.
Yeah.
And a slideshow.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to talk about that more in detail.
Yeah, I was thinking that, so when we put together the MailChimp and we talked about sending the email, we said that if we had a special message as a board, then we would approve it as a board. So I put together what I thought would be a good special message that we can look at tonight. And the goal I had with doing that was to inform people that may have missed out on the forums, but also allow people that may have been there a chance to refer back and get some notes from what went on. Also, there was a link to the survey in there, and another way for people to sign up. I can try to share it with you and show you, but we also need to decide, like Eric was saying, like, are we sending the slideshow out? Are we sharing the video? Are we not sharing the video? So what I put together was just this test email, exploration and consolidation to achieve better student outcomes, opportunities, and potential cost savings. And then just a little catchy, did you miss our community forums to discuss the future of our schools and the discussion around potential changes? Please take a moment to find the slideshow, presentation, and survey links. And then this link would bring them to the slideshow, which just kind of, I don't know why you can't see the slideshow.
You should have the option to change tabs within your sharing.
What do I do? This? How do I do it, Corey?
Go to the tab that you want.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Just kidding. New to screen sharing. So this would be the presentation that we would share, and then Mary, the attendance is listed in here as well. Of who came, it's kind of notes. It's approximate because I may or may not have missed jotting down some people that were on virtually. But it's just what we shared, and then includes kind of some questions that were mentioned at each forum and under each scenario. Questions from each forum. So I don't know if this is something that you guys think we want to share. Eric and I were discussing the other day, like maybe we should decide to include some responses to these questions, or maybe we should only include the questions. But this would just be notes. And then going back to the email, they would also have a link to the survey. And it clearly states that it's a first draft and only the start to more conversations and data collection. The survey link would be here. This is the survey that we had created. I guess I have to do that again, sorry. Where is it? I don't know where it is. I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, it brings you to the survey somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That they could then answer. And so I guess we just need to decide if we do or do not want to do that. And then there's also the video as well at the end.
Yeah, so I think this falls in the category of like a special email. We decided earlier this year that just the regular emails that go out contain all the publicly available information that it's just easier for people to open up an email and click on rather than trying to find everything. But so I think, and again, kind of going back to the recording too, I mean, this is information that I think if the board wants, we could send out to try and gather some more information on the forums or about consolidation of the forums. So, yeah.
And then if we do send the slideshow, deciding if we want to include some of our responses or just kind of the basic questions that were asked, or if we are or are not including this video. So there is a video here, but only we have access to that because it hasn't been made public. So we would have to decide if we are making that video public, and if so, if we're including it in the email or not, or if we're just not including the video from there and only sharing the slideshow and the notes. But this is all ready to be sent once we decide what we are eliminating or adding.
Matt?
Hey, I think this is great work. So appreciate your hard work here. I'm into all of this. I think it's a great idea. It's a good summary, and I think we owe something back to the public. So my question is, do we have a Wells video too, or just the Middletown?
Someone forgot to hit the record button.
Okay. All good. So we at least have one. I think we should send that video. I think it's okay.
Mary?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Matt said. I think that's great. And I've actually had a couple people reach out and say, is there a recording? Just like our school board meetings, or, hey, you know, I know that Amanda mentioned this or Eric mentioned that. Like, did you catch that? So I just think that including it would be, I'm in favor for that for sure.
Okay. Anything else we want to add to this? Or is everyone content?
Do we want answers in the slideshow or just send it with the slideshow with the bullet points?
That's another
Does anybody
question.
use the slideshow other than you?
What's that?
We presented it at the forums, but I can open it back up for you if you want.
Yeah.
So we recorded the Middletown, but not the Wells.
Yes.
Accidentally.
But you have information, you were writing down the question, the
Yeah.
comments that were
Yeah.
made, the questions that were asked.
And just to be clear, I forgot to hit record for Wells.
Okay, so what is the video? Because I haven't seen it.
Oh, I can send it. Yeah. I mean, you could probably find it in your Google Drive. Because everyone who was invited via the Google Meet has access to it. You just have to look for it, but I can send you a link. But yeah. But either way, if no one objects, we can, we can share it out in the email communication. So that way people who weren't in attendance can at least have some context to the survey, So you send out a survey, there's no information with it, and it's the same with the presentation. We send out the presentation as it was presented. There's no conversation behind it. There's no questions, there's no answers. So I think the more information that is, provided, the idea is that maybe someone can at least provide some sort of input based off the information that we're sharing. So. All right.
Lewis,
Okay.
sorry.
So
Can I, about the slideshow giving answers and things? Maybe it's the wrong time. Maybe you can't answer now, but in the past, I think it was last month, you had said with the savings when we were collecting information about these scenarios, it was like for every 1 penny, it was only like $1,000.
1 penny on the tax rate is $10.
Okay.
Property taxes for every $100,000.
Okay. Thank you.
all right. So we'll move on. Before we move on, just to make sure, I just wanted to get input from the board for the consolidation when we're going to have this, when we're going to pick up this conversation again. Should we wait till after the budget? We're done with the budget. Should we pick it up in December, January? Just wanted to get thoughts before we move on from this subject.
How long are we planning on keeping the survey open?
A month, maybe a month after the next email communication goes out, the special email communication goes out, something like that, maybe.
And what about timing on this mailing?
Oh, my thought, the sooner the better. I mean,
should we regroup after we get the mailing out and see if there's any significant response?
Yeah.
is regroup as far as talking consolidation?
No.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, my thought is, that's why, I mean, we can, as we talked about before, no big rush, we can tackle the budget, and not have this, on the agenda. And it might help too, to kind of separate both conversations, as well. So I don't know, that's just my thought.
I would think if we mail out the flyers or postcards, if that's what we're mailing out, and we say they're gonna arrive at people's houses by November 1st, then we give that a month
Okay,
to allow people to sign up and then send the same message again.
okay,
Because if we send it now to 111
yeah,
and in November we have 211, then we have 100 people that didn't even get the survey in their email.
yeah. Or 511.
Good thing we got a budget.
So we're talking about when we're talking about the same time we're done with the budget.
Okay, yeah. All right, so January.
Yeah. And I'd say by January, maybe it changes. Maybe the survey doesn't change, but we have to go from 4 to 2.
Yeah.
So then another message is different.
Okay. I mean, I'm open for it. I just, if there's nothing to talk about, why talk about it too? But Again, I think
Or even if we
one
leave
of,
it-
one of the challenges last year was that we were talking about consolidation and we're talking about budget at the same time. And so, it can get confusing and also kind of send the wrong message.
What if we leave it to December 1st? Leave the survey to December 1st. That gives them, hopefully everyone has these postcards by November. That gives them a month to do the survey. We send the special message again in November, take the survey down in December, talk in January about what our second message is, and hopefully at that point have 2 scenarios instead of 4, and then maybe another survey in February or March. I'd be in favor of December 1st for the survey.
Yeah. All right. I think I have,
Do you have a question?
all right.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. All right. I think I have a pretty good idea on this. So, all right. So we're going to move on to the work plan. So in your materials, you have the Wellsprings 24-25 work plan. Do you have a question?
No.
So the point of this is just to kind of lay out the action items and items for the board. These are things that are regular part of the board's work in a year. And in addition to that, anything we would like to add to this. So this is definitely open for amendments or changes or additions. And I think, moving forward, it'd be good to have some sort of work plan in place. And this also kind of puts things in perspective for the boardman that, we should all be looking at regularly, knowing what's coming up. And if there is something of interest that should come up. So yeah, I think one thing that on the last column there for presentation and board and learning, I think that might be something we need to think about where we need to fill in the gaps there. Because looking back when we kind of did our practice board assessment back in June or whatever, I think, there were some areas of improvement as far as district quality standards go. But one suggestion I had as far as board learning might be something along the lines of like finances, maybe more in-depth budget. I don't know. I think that's always something that an area of improvement, because I think we kind of get in the habit of whenever we need money questions answered, we just ask Lewis. I think there's some things that we should just know. That's just my thought.
So are you thinking about having Lewis give a presentation or what? I'm sorry. And is it in regards to our budget or what happens when we budget like that? The informational sheet you have there.
I just kind of, not specifically the budget itself, but just around finances and yeah. It might be
longer range.
Yeah, like just I don't know who and again there's so many elements to it. When I think about it, I don't know who actually looks like in the warrants like in detail. I don't know who's asking questions so I think there's different aspects to it that how it would be presented or where the board learning, that's a whole nother piece because I don't know. And I'm definitely not, saying that, Lewis should do that, but, I'm sure there's all kinds of things he would rather spend his evening doing, so I'm not.
During a regularly scheduled meeting, then I plan to be here, then that's fine. But
Yeah, I know. I
prefer not to have to come out for an extra meeting.
was just throwing out an idea, okay? So I
Well, so like, this is sort of budgety, but like this long range facility planning, which is sort of budgeting.
Yeah.
Like, basically in part, if not largely based on that one done by the state, and really hone in on what that means for our buildings and our budget.
yeah.
I don't know if the facilities committee is how that would work, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, we are looking at the plan that we made up for both schools, one each, and certainly looking at the report that the state has issued. And I'm trying to make sure that we've got money in there to pay for the things that we know are coming in the next 5 years.
So I guess what I'm just saying is that maybe you could be facilitating a presentation during a meeting about that.
I mean, I will be giving a presentation on facilities next month, and just to update you as to where we are and what's coming down the road.
Is that the kind of stuff you're looking for that column, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, anything really, because it's not just specific to that. It's really anything that the board feels that.
Student services could go in there. I know it's an SU housed thing, but maybe, I don't know, some sort of help and understanding how student services are affecting our budget and our challenges in our schools. I mean, I don't know how broad it could be. It could be pretty broad.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why there's so many blank spots on this.
Well, I just try to fill in some of them, based on some of the stuff that we've done over the years.
Mary?
Yeah, I know I brought up this before, but just like, harkening back to like the glossary, and as much as like I try to digest the budget myself and then try to describe it or explain it to other people who might have questions. I'm not sure if that's something we can dive into this year, or maybe put it on, the back burner for something long, but I just think it might be beneficial eventually.
Yeah. I mean, did you
in Chris's report?
Yeah, did you see the one in the materials?
Yeah, I did. I printed out the school budget and education financing, just the fact sheet, and I thought that was awesome. I was just thinking, I wasn't sure if that would be something that would be included like with our budget, or our annual report, or anything that, if someone wants to look up the CLA, and what the definition means, that there's a glossary or something like along those lines. But I that's what made me think of it, is just reading this report from Chris.
Yeah.
Well, those reports will be on the website, and it's part of our annual report and the postcards that we send out. We want to direct traffic to our website because we can't put every piece of data into our annual reports and get every piece of data out. It costs money, and that it's too much data sometimes is bad. So, but we can get everybody to our website where all that information will be there, including the FAQs and timelines, and we have our reports, we have our budgets, as well as other data that we put up there with the glossary that we put up last year. To get people to the website, then they can access that data as they need.
Okay, great.
And we can put a link to that if we decide as a board, Mary, to put a link right to that spot on the website in one of our emails that we're sending out, because all of our links in our emails are going to the website anyway, so as long as it's on there, we can do that.
Yeah, and so one thing that I thought, with the in that last column there was, we talked about let's say and it was kind of funny. Like the VSBA has good webinars and stuff like that, and I think the comment was, "Oh, we just going to watch a a video," but that would be something that could, and I've seen other districts do it, but the question is is that a waste of board time if we were to do something like that? So, like, I think, and one thing that in the past is that the stuff's on the internet. People can watch it on their own time. So that's my concern. Is like, if we're going to do like any kind of like board learning stuff like that, are we going to do it like in a meeting? You know what I mean? So like,
To a retreat.
yeah. So I mean, and that's why I said, like, we don't even have to have that on there if people feel. If we're gonna, this isn't my plan. This is like the board's plan, and I want to make sure that it's something that we all agree on, and it's not just words that we only look at once a year. So,
What if we just, like the webinar that the VSBA just had on negotiations? What if we, for October, for example, say, here's a link to the webinar that the VSBA just had on negotiations. You guys wanna refer to, like, just, I don't know, here's the link.
Is your goal to, they have a presentation at every meeting and extend your meetings?
what's that?
I mean, is that what, I mean, are you looking to fill in this presentation column?
No, we're talking about it.
Even keeping them.
Yeah. It's more of a conversation on what we want to see in a work plan. And again, it was just something that I kind of put together just to kind of start the conversation, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's not, I mean, we should have something in place. And I say that just because I've seen what the district quality standards are going to look like as far as self-evaluation goes. And, but yeah, it's, so I guess let me ask this. Do we feel we need board learning in this work plan? Yes, sir.
I would think the board learning that we could have in this work plan would be, if it's something that we want consistently, is maybe a very brief report from you or whoever else is going to the SU meetings as far as what happened, like earlier when Chris was able to say, yes, they just raised the substitutes to 17 an hour. I knew that because I was listening to the meeting, but everybody else didn't. So I think the board learning should be what's happening in our supervisory union.
Yeah.
More so as opposed to the VSBA.
And that's under reports, so.
Because we don't, I don't know. We don't have access to that. So we don't know if we're not listening to the whole 2.5 hour video or getting a brief overview or hoping the minutes covered it all. Or
Some of the boards have a chair report on their district level agenda, where the chair's report is pretty much just a summary of the GRCSU meeting.
Yep. Yeah. Highlights or whatever. Okay. Well, any thoughts, input on this?
I mean,
Okay.
VSBA is a great resource for 1-hour seminars like the one on negotiating. If everyone is on their mailing list, you get links sent out. Chris, in his superintendent's report, usually includes those links. So I don't know how we can incorporate that into our work plan, but some mention of that should be made.
Yeah. I thought the negotiation webinar was very good the other day. But anyway, all right. So we're going to move on from this. It's I guess information for now, but we might take a look at this later on. It sounds like it needs work. Matt, did you have a question or comment? Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to policy. We have 2 policies that are up for adoption: the driver's education policy, F3, and H5 Title I. So is there a motion to adopt F3 and H5?
I'll make that motion to adopt H3 and H5.
Motion by Matt. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Oh, any opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
I just to correct, I think Matt said H3 and it's actually F3. So in the minutes, just to correct that motion, it's F3 and H5.
Oh, good catch.
My bad.
That's
Thank
okay.
you.
All right. No executive session. We're on to general public comment. Is there anyone else or anyone online tonight wish to speak? Comment? Yes, Tammy.
I gotta remember all my questions now. Budget. When you were looking at the capital project fund, refresh my memory, is there a certain time frame that those funds have to be used?
No. So those funds are set in there, they do not expire.
Okay. And just my comment on that is just, I would just be careful on how we're using the funds, given we don't know what's going to go on with the state, with everything with consolidation and stuff. I wouldn't, I just don't think it's wise to put a lot of money into something that we might not use down the road either. The other question I had is, why do we know why the after school program is not working? I mean, is it we're not paying enough, or because you said it wasn't the kids and it sounds like it's free. So do you guys do you know why it's not popular? Because I would think people would be looking for daycare after school.
As of the last update we received, it wasn't staff. They were having a hard time finding staffing for both.
But why was that? Do you know why people weren't applying? Was it pay or no?
I mean, I'm sure pay is part of it, but I mean, we struggle staffing our buildings every day. Paras, subs, support staff, learn teachers. I mean, it's the staffing. There's staffing shortages, and by the end of the day, it makes it even harder for people. The people that are here don't want to stay any longer because they've already worked the full day, and then to find other people to work just 2 hours is difficult.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. And as far as the I know you guys talked about postcards to do the email and stuff. But I can tell you, just because I do a lot of counting of the ballots in our town of Wells, and we don't get a lot of voters in our town that come out to actually vote. And I don't know if actually, sending out the booklet of our budget, at least this year, and with the link of signing up for newsletters and all that stuff would help with the people voting or coming out to vote, especially so they can actually get it in the mail, sit down, hopefully read it, just to find out what's going on with our schools and stuff. We have a lot of elderly in the town and they don't get out and they're not going to go somewhere and grab the booklet up at the town hall or wherever. And I think that was one of the main reasons why we brought it up in the community forum to mail out the budget this year. It wasn't just for the email sign up link. So, and I think that's all I had.
All right, thank you.
Are you, excuse me, are you saying that most of the people in Wells vote using the mail ballot?
No, I'm saying we don't get a lot of people that vote in Wells. The numbers are a lot lower in Wells than Middletown that actually come out to vote. It's pretty sad.
Yeah,
And I don't know if it's the growing population that is elderly or they're just, I'm not sure why people don't come out. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
I mean, what we're trying to do is to get information, accurate information to the people that do vote, whether they do it via the mail ballot or in person.
Yep. Well, I'm looking at it as maybe we would get more of a say, you know, that maybe people would actually come out and voice their opinions or help if they had more of the knowledge coming to them in the mail. Because I know, you know, the last few years since we've done this consolidation, the booklet has not gone out in the mail like it used to.
All right, thank you. All right, so our next meeting is November 12th, Middletown Springs. And if there's no other agenda items the board wants to discuss, a motion to adjourn at 7:56 would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by George. Those in favor to adjourn, please say aye.
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 All right, motion carries.